You're watching 2DR Explore on YouTube, and no, I am not dead. And no, this project isn't dead either. So today I'm just going to do a quick little update of where things are. Don't get your hopes up, not much has been done. And then maybe with a little bit of luck, I'm going to get a transfer case fitted up in this thing. So on this project, there's been a bunch of things that I've kind of dabbled in and tried to come to solutions with that just haven't really come to fruition. One of these things that I spent a bunch of time on was the accessory drive on the front of this engine. From the factory, from Mercedes, they use V-belts, and I'm not a fan of that. It's not the best setup. Not to say that what Mercedes did was wrong or wouldn't work. One big downside of it was that you would have to get custom power steering lines made because the fittings are a bit strange, or maybe you could find adapter fittings. Hard to say, but I just didn't really want to go that way, and I figured, well, I'll do a serpentine drive conversion. So I spent a whole bunch of time taking the accessories off, trying to get random things to fit. I've got a GM LS style alternator on here. That's what GM used in pretty much any V8 application in the last 20-something years. And I've got a Jeep power steering pump, and I've got a water pump pulley from some sort of a Ford product. I forget what. I could figure it out if I needed to. That said, none of this stuff actually lines up perfectly, and it all just kind of isn't there. So it's one of these things. It's like, this isn't really an ideal update. I'm just saying I spent a bunch of time on this, didn't accomplish anything. I believe that at this point, though, Doomsday Diesel now offers a kit for all of this. So perhaps that is what I will look at doing instead. It might just be easier, or maybe I'll fix this stuff and finish it. We will see. So another thing that happened that basically I've wasted a bunch of time on and haven't accomplished anything was trying to figure out the steering. And it's a bit of a challenge with the oil pan design and the overall height of the engine. So what's happened here is that currently the drag link's actually disconnected, and it is hard up on the oil pan, and it's still about 8 inches away from the pitman arm. I actually have a collection of random drop pitman arms and things like that, and even with the most extreme of them, it wouldn't solve this problem, which is fine because you wouldn't want to solve it that way anyway. However, the other thing that's wrong here too is that the whole track bar, as they call it in the Jeep world, better known as a panhard bar, it is not even attached right now, and same thing. So the only solution that I can see at this point actually is that I'm going to have to cut the whole front of the oil pan off and move the sump, which is going to be very involving. So it's something that I'm just working myself up to. But I did buy another engine with another oil pan so that I could screw one up at least before I'm out of options. So one thing that I did actually do was I got really fed up with the tires and wheels that were on this thing. The tires did not hold air for longer than about 5 or 6 hours. If that. Just the frustration of having to fill them up constantly led me to go out and find another set of wheels and some new tires. I don't really think I intend to run these long term. It's just something to do a little bit better for the time being. At least the truck is a little bit higher now. It's easier to work on because of this. These are Liberty KK 17-inch wheels. And no, KK wheels do not fit an XJ or an MJ or any of those other eras of Jeeps. The hub bore diameter in them is too small. I took them out with a die grinder. I don't really recommend you do that. It was just something that I did at this point because I figured, well, doesn't really matter. I don't know if I'm going to run them anyway. These tires are about a 30.5-inch size, so you can see they're a little bit big for the truck as it's sitting. I do intend to lift the truck, but this is highly unlikely to be the final tire size, lift, any of that other stuff. It's just so there was something on it that was not terrifying to be around too. The one tire had such a bad sidewall on it, I was afraid it was going to kill me. So there is that. Also, I did an ALDA delete. This is, again, using a part from Doomsday Diesel. This should just make the truck a little peppier with a factory turbo. So for a transfer case, I decided I was going to go with this MP241, which is out of a Wrangler JK. And the main reason for using it was that I happen to have it, and it's a really low mile unit that came out of a wrecked Jeep that had about 20,000 miles on it, I believe. Because of that, it doesn't need to be rebuilt. It's basically brand new, ready to go by the standards of everything on this thing at least. And it is a considerable strength upgrade over the 231 that would have been used in this Jeep from the factory. However, it does have some downsides. One is that it's got these really goofy yokes on it that are for the Rezepa style drive shafts that were used in the JKs. That's easy to deal with. The yokes are readily available. I happen to have one on the shelf already, so I'm halfway there. The other thing that's a little bit of a downside is that there is no speedometer drive provisions in this transfer case. The JK doesn't need that. It uses wheel speed sensors. That's something that's easy enough to work around, so I will work around that. So honestly, this transfer case isn't going to fit without at least cutting off one of the mounts for the mass dampener. I'm going to just cut two of them off because at this point, well, I'm already going to ruin it for any JK use, so might as well. It's very important to smooth out your cuts when ruining good parts. It's the hallmark of a professional, and definitely a sign of a clean build. Okay, so hopefully it fits with just that small amount of butchery. All right. Well, there you have it. Still doesn't fit. Gotta cut the floor. Well, that didn't go very well. Of course, this means getting part of the interior out along with the rubber flooring. I'm actually partial to these rubber floors, but they absolutely destroy the floor pans because they will never allow any water trapped under them to dry out. I'm cutting it in half because if I do reuse it, I will cover the seam with a full console, so there's really no loss there. And it's a lot easier to get them out this way. They're just incredibly unwieldy in one piece. As we can see, there is now some skylights on the driver's side of the floor. They're not quite yet big enough to be classified as escape hatches. It's actually not as bad as I expected, but let's just say my expectations were lower than the floor of Death Valley. The passenger side is not as bad, but we will still need some new metal. I'm really not sure what this is, but yeah, it looks disgusting. Anywho, since this ship isn't watertight, I figured I'd better make the drain hole larger. And this is my best guess on how much bigger it needs to be. I'm not losing any clean metal to the angle grinder here. At least not yet. Doesn't fit. Well, that hole just keeps getting bigger. And now it's extending into clean metal. It fits. Well, okay, it's hitting everywhere. But like they say, rubbin's racing. Well, there you have it. The episode I didn't want to make and the episode I doubt anybody really wanted to watch. But I kind of had to do this. I just had to put something together and get back into the habit of making videos. I mean, this has been 2 years since I've actually uploaded anything. And, I'm a little bit upset with myself about that. But at the same time, the last 2 years, I think, probably weren't the best for a lot of people. And I would include myself in that. For anybody that's watching this far off in the future and doesn't know what I'm talking about, I'm referencing a certain global pandemic. And hopefully there isn't anything so catastrophic that comes up in the next several years that means that I need to clarify that. But, geopolitics, it's always hard to say. So anyway, thanks for watching. I mean, I get it if you don't like it. This was not my best content. Go right ahead, hit the unsubscribe button, hit the thumbs down button, leave a mean comment below. Doesn't really matter to me. If you did like it, maybe let me know. Maybe hit the thumbs up. Anyways, thanks for watching if you did. Have a good one. Should figure out what you're going to say. Stand in front of the camera.